I'm just so glad that the American people are seeing what so many of us who worked for her saw and what motivated us to come to work every single day and work some of the hours that we were working because we believed in her and we believed in what we knew that she would do and could do if given the opportunity.
You go to California, they have blackouts and brownouts every single day. California's a mess. They have the governor of California, Gevin Newsom. Has anybody ever heard of him? But worse, they had an attorney general and a DA who destroyed San Francisco and then destroyed California.
Gevin Reynolds, it's great to have you back on the Ken Harbaugh Show. Actually, first time on the Ken Harbaugh Show. You're an old guest on Against All Enemies. We have pivoted. Right. We're having a great time doing it daily now. But I don't know where to begin except that the usual shtick, Donald Trump throwing out these wild accusations. I mean, it's worked for him for a very long time. It's his original MO with birtherism and everything else. It's getting tired though. And it doesn't even have the same effect in the moment with the crowd. They're not laughing anymore. I don't know. What's your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, Ken, thanks for having me on. Congratulations on the show and just all of the amazing success. I think you're right. The whole shtick is getting tired because the American people are getting tired. I think right now people are actually looking for a leader who can come in and offer a bold vision of new leadership over the next 4 years. And President Obama said this best at the DNC, which is that we know the sequel is always worse. And we've seen what Donald Trump will do to our country if we let him. And he hasn't been shy about what he wants to do if he's elected to a second term. I mean, you talk about some of the lies he's been throwing around. Talk about the cats, right? Toni Morrison actually famously reminded us about what racism at its core is, which is that it's a distraction, right? And that's Donald Trump's strategy with all of the lies, especially the racist lies like the Springfield and Haitian cat lies. I do want to believe it's backfiring on him. Look, it's bad when someone like Vivek Ramaswamy goes to Springfield and then says that he didn't see any evidence of Haitian people eating cats. But at the same time, a poll taken of Trump supporters after the debate showed that 52% of his supporters actually believed him. Yeah. And I think it's important that we also remember, right, that a lot of the rhetoric, although we know, their lies, they can have some dangerous consequences. I mean, over his first term in office, hate crimes went up and were under prosecuted under his watch, in large part, in my opinion, due to his inflammatory and hateful rhetoric, which we knew about before we elected him. And after the whole Haitian thing, Haitians in Springfield were being targeted such that children had to miss out on their education and stay home. And, you look at what he was saying in Pennsylvania about the blackouts and the brownouts happening in California. Once again, Donald Trump lying. There are not blackouts and brownouts every day happening in California. But if we want to go deeper, Ken, I did some research. And if Trump wants to talk about blackouts, let's talk about why those blackouts are happening. In fact, from 2000 to 2023, 61% of all major blackouts reported in the state were caused by extreme weather events. And we know that extreme weather events are caused by ding, 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 climate change, something Donald Trump has repeatedly called a hoax. So if he wants to do something about these blackouts and these brownouts, which, by the way, I didn't know what a brownout was, so I learned something, but maybe he should actually embrace some economic policies focused on building a clean energy economy, which Vice President Harris has done and which Governor Newsom, not Newscum, has actually done. And so these lies continue to be a part of the pattern. He told at least 30 of them during the debate. Speaking of that debate, right? You know how bad he knows he did because he won't agree to another one. So, and the last thing I'll say about all of these lies and, about the California blackouts and brownouts, let's remember where he made that false statement. He was in Pennsylvania, a state that Kamala Harris is leading by 5 points right now. So maybe next time Donald Trump visits that state, he should try spending his time talking about Pennsylvania, not a state on the other side of the country, which he's going to lose anyway. So
I'm really glad you pointed out the damage that these lies do, because it's easy as a political commentator to sit back and do the political analysis and say they're falling flat and they're only appealing to a vanishingly small percentage of his base. But that shrinking percentage of his base who seize upon these lies and then act on them, they can do real damage to communities
Absolutely.
like Springfield writ large, but particularly to the vulnerable populations that Trump is so effective at targeting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg made this observation that the thing that is going to cost Trump and Vance the election isn't the racism, it isn't the lies. It's the fact that they put their policies on paper, that they wrote it out in Project 2025. And at the end of the day, that is what has woken up so many ordinary Americans, not the professional pundits who pay attention to this stuff 24/7, much as I wish we didn't have to, but to the folks who have real jobs, right? Who are paying attention to other things because they have to. But the MAGAverse wrote it down.
They wrote it down.
Have you ever seen anything? I'm trying to think of an analog in at least my political memory of a political tract or platform or treatise being so damaging to the movement that put it out.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's the saying my mom taught me, if someone shows you who they are, the first time, believe them. And so I think we have ample evidence to believe what Donald Trump is about, but you're so right. And I'm so glad we're finally talking about Project 2025. I was a part of the speechwriting team at the DNC. And from a strategic level, we really wanted to make sure that people who are watching the DNC day in and day out came away with an understanding of what Project 2025 is. You may remember, those who watched it, the big book we had some of our speakers walk out with and plop down on the podium. What was in those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages is exactly the blueprint that Donald Trump and his MAGA verse has in store for a second term, right? And you take an issue that really matters to American people, something like the economy and the rising cost of living. Kamala Harris actually has a vision for how to rebuild more pathways to the middle class, to cut taxes for working families who are struggling. Donald Trump in Project 2025 and every other source of campaign material out there, he's not shy about telling everyone he wants to cut taxes for the billionaires. He wants to bring back tariffs, which will hurt working people. So the divergent visions that the two candidates have, not only on the economy, but for rights and freedoms, for America's posture on the world stage in terms of standing up for our allies and partners around the world, in terms of fighting the climate crisis, in terms of literally every other issue out there. The contrast couldn't be clearer. We saw that in the debate. We saw that at the DNC versus the RNC. We see it every single day when Kamala Harris goes up there and when Donald Trump goes up there. And it's certainly written in the however many hundreds of pages of Project 2025. So for those who do not know about it, which I know is not anyone who's listening to us right now, but it's not hard to find out what's in there. And I think what's in there would be a disaster for America. And I think the American people are realizing that more and more by the day.
It's Ken Harbaugh. Quick break here because I have two favors to ask. We're off to a great start with the Ken Harbaugh Show on YouTube, but the podcast needs a little love. Please click the link below to follow, rate, and review. The success of shows like this really does depend on those ratings. And if you haven't yet followed me on Patreon, please check it out. It's free to sign up, or you can pitch in a few bucks a month. Every dollar goes back into this show and our pro-democracy efforts, including the reporting from Ukraine. Go to patreon.com/Ken Harbaugh. Thanks for the support. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. Here's how it works. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Metabolic health is one of the keys to overall well-being. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/boats to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/boats for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. I wish I had the numbers top of mind, but there's a recent poll and a legit one. It was Siena or something like that about public reactions to themes in American life. Capitalism is still 85% positive. The only thing worse than socialism and smallpox was Project 2025. It had a net negative 57 or something. Yeah. And the fact that this has worked, that you and I talking about it, that the DNC highlighting it, that the MeidasTouch network ad nauseum going on about Project 2025, which is, a 1,000-page manual that in normal political times, nobody would care about. It has worked. We have driven the point home. That's Americans are right to be scared of it. And we took this dry, boring manual on how to destroy America and turned it into the biggest political liability I think a party has had in modern history. I have a bet to settle with you, though, because we had Jason Crow on, and I asked him, because he walked up there with the actual book, right? Yeah. How do you get that? I know you can get it online, but can you order Project 2025 on Amazon? Who is printing that thing out?
That's a great question. I do not know the story of how we obtained that book, but I do know that it was guarded very closely, I believe, by someone who was a part of the DNC team's daughter, who her job in Chicago was to sit there and make sure that the Project 2025 book remained intact and exactly where it should be. So I thought that was a pretty cool job to protect the Project 2025
That's
book.
Awesome. Last question for you, because you're a political messaging guru. You wrote speeches for the vice president, who will soon be our president. Right. I don't see the Trump-Vance campaign coming up with an answer to her appeal, her messaging. They're trying everything. It feels like there was a deliberate attempt to play the race card and just drag VP Harris into the gutter with them. She has so deftly avoided that. I can't remember which interview it was, but she's like, next question, his same old tricks, right? Yeah. She is not playing, right? She's not going
during the CNN sit down with Dana Bash that she did with Tim Walz. Was that interview?
Exactly. Yeah. That was it. What do they? I mean, I hate to ask you what your advice to the Trump campaign would be, but why don't they have an answer to this? This is politics 101.
Well, we have to remember, why is Donald Trump running? He's not running because he wants to, provide leadership to the people of America or to our nation. He's running to stay out of jail, right? And so there's no coherent strategy right now with what he's doing or how he's approaching his campaign. J.D. Vance was a terrible pick. He's extremely awkward, lacks all charisma. And I think we'll see is it next week, October 1st, when he takes the stage against Tim Walz, who just America has embraced so much. He's a normal guy. He's a former football coach, a former teacher, someone who's been a leader in the state of Minnesota and brought about so much good in that state. I think the contrast between the two of them, not only on policy, but on personality and on just vision, all of that is going to be so clear. So I think it's important to just remember, right? Donald Trump is not running because he actually cares about this country. He's running because he cares about himself. And through his policies, you can see that he just cares about his other rich friends, truly anyone who can write him a check to help him with his legal fees. Whereas Vice President Harris has assembled a team in so short of time. How long has it been since she ascended to the top of the ticket? Yeah. And look at the strides that she has made, not only in the polls, but in fundraising, in terms of the enthusiasm that we're seeing from, folks who are chipping in to her campaign, in terms of the time that they're volunteering, their time, their talent, their treasure, literally every metric you can think of enthusiasm. We just saw a poll come out, I think it was today or yesterday, the Harvard Youth poll, showing that the vice president is now up 30 plus points over the former president. Now, President Biden wasn't even at that point, right? That was a demographic for him that he really was needing to make up some ground with. The vice president's also doing extremely well with voters of color, Asian American voters, black voters. Certainly still ground to make up, though. We saw the New York Times Siena poll that shows some difficulties, right, in terms of ground she needs to make up in states like Georgia and Arizona and North Carolina. But I think she's really done a good job of solidifying states like Pennsylvania and others across the Midwest. So certainly still work to do, but I believe that only one campaign is serious about doing it.
Me too. You spent a lot of time very close with the vice president. I am old enough to remember 2 months ago, 3 months ago, when people wondered if she was up to the task, right?
Right.
I mean, her net favorable was underwater. Most political commentators said that, she'd be a disaster. Did the people close to her know something the rest of us didn't? Were you keeping it close to the vest? Or was this a perfect storm?
The thing is, working at the White House is a very difficult job. It's a very challenging job, and it's certainly one you don't do for the money, right? You do it because you believe in the mission, and more importantly, you believe in their principle, the PAL, like the person you work for, right? And the PLE as well, sure. But we were there because we believed in Vice President Kamala Harris, and we saw what I think the American people are finally seeing, and which I think other people saw along the way too, which is that she is someone who we need to lead our country into the future. She is so brilliant. She is so dedicated. The level of preparation and detail orientation that she brings to her job. There was that article that came out. I can't remember if it was Washington Post or New York Times, where a former staffer said, "Oh, it's so hard to prep her because she asked questions about what's in the briefing material." Well, yeah, I think it would be a problem if she didn't. And this is someone who's dedicated her whole life to serving no one other than the American people. As far as I know, her only boss has ever been, besides her summer job at McDonald's in college, has been the American people, whether in California or now as vice president and soon to be president. So I'm just so glad that the American people are seeing what so many of us who worked for her saw and what motivated us to come to work every single day and work some of the hours that we were working, because we believed in her and we believed in what we knew that she would do and could do if given the opportunity.
And what you saw and what inspired you is exactly the same thing that terrifies Donald Trump. I mean, if there is a perfect storm,
right.
It's the vice president herself. He is terrified of facts, and she brings facts to arguments. He's terrified of women. He's terrified of minorities.
Yes.
I don't feel sorry for him at all, right? But it's like all of his phobias in one package staring him down on a stage. No wonder he doesn't want to debate her again. Any final thoughts?
I certainly wouldn't want to debate her again either. Just the way in which she prosecuted the case against the former president, right? And you mentioned before, on the issue of race and the way that the vice president has handled that. I think it's been so smart. She lets her appearance do the talking. We know her background. We know her ethnicity. We know the history that will be made once she's elected. But we also know, and she knows, that the American people want to see, what is it? What is the vision that you have for the next 4 years? And Vice President Harris, I believe, up there on the debate stage, and every single time she takes the stage, presents that case better than I've seen a politician do in recent memory. You named the issue, whether it's reproductive freedom, whether it's the economy and rebuilding the middle class, or fighting the climate crisis. These are issues she's been working on for so long, and I think it shows. And I think the American people are craving bold, fresh, new leadership. That's the complete antithesis of what Donald Trump offers, but it's exactly what Kamala Harris offers. And I'm very excited to, see the campaign continue to do that work, like we said, to close those gaps that exist. I'm certainly doing everything that I can. Ken, I was knocking on doors for the Democrats in a swing district in New York this past weekend, and I'm excited to continue to do whatever that I can, make phone calls, knock on doors, give money, share those resources with, my friends and family, to make sure that we do what former First Lady Michelle Obama told us, which is to do something.
Indeed. Very well said, Gevin. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's do this often.
Let's do it. Thanks, Ken.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.